This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com, and I'm with the beautiful Francine Fournier from ECW and WWE, and her co-host Chad from the Two-Man Power Trip of Wrestling is also here. I was just on their show. How are you doing today, Francine and Chad?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having us on. I'm excited.
Lovely. Thanks for coming on with us, and good to be here.
You already have a proposal request from Danny Blake.
Oh, Danny, if I was single, maybe so, but I am an old married woman with children. But thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
And Scott says when he first met you, his heart was pounding deeply, and the second time he wanted to be with you forever. Oh, my God.
Thank you, Scott. You guys are sweet. No love for Chad, but it's
sorry,
okay.
I got nothing. It's okay. It's all right.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
So to start this off, Francine and Chad, do you want to tell us about your show and how you guys started it off? I believe it's only on Patreon right now. At one point, you may have been on the Russo network, but I think you're doing your own thing now.
Yes, yeah. We recently.
I think he jumped there. He's back.
Oh, do you do that?
I take myself off in between.
No worries. Okay, so Chad approached me over about a year ago, right?
Just about a year.
Our anniversary. Yeah, correct. And he wanted to do a podcast, and I had said a number of times I didn't want to get into the podcasting world because I didn't want to do a wrestling podcast because there was like a million of them out there. But when Chad had called me, he suggested we try a lifestyle podcast where, we can talk about anything that we wanted. And I'm a big Disney mark, so I wanted to incorporate Disney into the show. I wanted to talk about my home life with my husband and my kids, and Chad with his wife and children as well. Just wanted to keep it just airy and light. And we wanted guests. So sometimes we have wrestling guests on, and sometimes we just had the voice of Charlie Brown on. We had Jim Florentine on. We try to bring a variety of people in. So not just wrestling, but just every aspect of entertainment. And we are celebrating our year anniversary in September. So we're really excited about that. A couple months in, Vince Russo asked us to go to the brand. And we had been with him for 6 months, but our Patreon did not get the podcast because it was part of the brand. So we've come to the conclusion that we feel like our fans need to get everything that has to do with me. So starting this week, we are on our own and we are putting everything on to Patreon. So we're very, very excited about it.
So it's a good time to get into Patreon. That's sorry to interrupt. That's the best thing we can say is right now is the best time to get into the Patreon because this is like about to just take off into the next stratosphere, and it's a little lonely. We need some people to join us in the Eyes Up Here universe.
Yes.
So where do they go to find your Patreon?
So it's www.patreon.com/Francine podcast. And you'll get the Eyes Up Here podcast, which is usually about an hour and 15 minutes. And then we do Patreon exclusives. So we get a little more on the raunchy side, if you will. We play drinking games. We talk about not so suitable for work topics, if you will. We just like to keep it fun and fresh, and we take requests from our Patreon members. So we try to accommodate everyone and just make it interactive and a lot of fun.
What type of drinking games do you play, and how crazy does that get?
The last one we did was something I came up with. I don't know if I'm sure in Canada you've heard of the Bean Boozled. They are the jelly beans from Jelly Belly. And it's like a Harry Potter thing. They have like the good flavors and they have the bad flavors. And I told Chad, why don't we do Bean Boozled? But if we pick a bad bean, we have to do shots. And so that's what we did. And of course, yours truly got 4 bad beans in a row. So by the time we were done, I was a little inebriated because I was drinking rum right out of the bottle.
Have you ever tried that drinking game where you listen to one of Vince Russo's podcasts and you take a shot every time he says bro? I don't think anyone could survive, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, no, we haven't done that one yet, but I have heard of that. What else did we do, Chad? We did
we did think while you drink. Whatever.
Yeah.
Think while you drink while you think, where basically, like, you know, we did it in two different ways. We did celebrity names and music names and then wrestling names. And basically, you know, Francine gives me a name and then I have to give her another name starting with the first letter of the last name. And as you're thinking, you're drinking in between, and those get a little sloppy.
They get sloppy. And
can't always think quick.
I think I was drinking a hard root beer and I was belching.
Oh boy.
It was not ladylike. I was trying to be ladylike about it, but it's just a good time, you know, and it's 12 o'clock somewhere, so why not, right?
Speaking of ladylike, we always hear about the female groupies in ECW. I think you were married the time you were in ECW, but was there male groupies?
I was not married. I was single.
So was there male groupies?
I assume they were, but they weren't with me. I never had a male rat. No. There were plenty of offers. I just never took anyone up on anything, you know. But,
what did you think of all the backstage craziness in those days with the drugs and the girls and all of that?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things in my time. And that's why, like, everybody says, are you going to write a book? And I'm like, no, because my book would be just fluff. Like, I am not in the business to out anyone or to tell negative stories. Because I don't want to, honestly, I don't want to get my friends in trouble, but I have seen a lot of debauchery and a lot of sin, and it's in the vault, ladies and gentlemen. It's up here. But yeah, there was a lot, but thankfully for me, you know, back then I didn't partake in the drug portion. I liked a couple cocktails, and that was the extent of my partying. So, you know, my friends who did it, I mean, thank God, you know, most of them are still around. There's some that we lost, but I never got involved in that, and I'm thankful.
Who was the worst, would you say? I know there was a lot of them, like Raven and Sadman would probably self-admit they were up there along with New Jack, but is there one that stands out to you as the craziest of all the ECW partiers?
I'm going to tell you a story, and you're going to think I'm being a jerk about this because I'm not going to name names, just because I know. But I watched, and I've said this before, I've told this story before, I've watched one of the guys had a needle, and there was a drug. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it was, oh God, what was that called? Nubane. Yes, Nubane, yes. So they only had enough, and the vials were very, very small, and they only had enough for one person to partake. I watched them inject it into their vein. Now I'm sitting across from them. I'm putting my boots on or something because we're in the locker room. They injected it into their vein in their arm, waited a minute, withdrew the blood, and then the second guy took that vial, stuck the needle in his arm, and put the blood in his arm to share the high because there was not enough for both of them. And at that point in my life, I said to myself, this is something that would probably happen in a movie. Like, who does this? It is it's unsafe, number one. And to me, it was just crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but I don't know. I'm not a drug addict or a drug person, so I can't understand or talk for other people as to why they do things. But I just remember I was so naive, and I just remember looking at them going, oh my gosh, like that's not safe. You know, like, it's so not safe. That was probably the craziest thing I've ever seen.
And how did you get involved in ECW? We're going to do eventually a career interview. The fans all love you. I don't know if you've been reading any of these comments, but we'll have to do like a 2-hour one sometime. But okay. How did you actually get into the wrestling business? The very brief Cole's Notes version.
So very briefly, I was not a fan growing up. I didn't get into wrestling until maybe 19 years old. And I am from Philadelphia. So at that point, they had Eastern Championship Wrestling was on Tuesday nights at 6:00. And one day I was sitting in front of the television eating dinner. This show came on and I was just like, oh my gosh, because I had watched WWF and Global. Those were the only two that I really knew what was going on. And there was a commercial on there. After about a month of watching this product, the commercial said, hey, do you want to be a manager or a referee or a wrestler? Why don't you give us a call? I worked at life insurance company. I was a data entry person. I hated sitting in a cubicle. I wanted something new, something different. I didn't know anything about the business. I pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, I think I can do this. And they were like, okay, come down and meet Todd Gordon. And that's exactly what I did, and started training, a week or so after.
And we actually have a fan that has tipped $5, and he's asking any crazy stories from the Elks Lodge in high school. We used to go to a club across the street called Naked City. They got shut down, obviously. That's from Curling.
Great place.
876.
Naked City. I remember I think it was the Gold Club. That I remember. I don't remember a Naked City, but I do remember a strip club. I thought it was the Gold Club, and I think they drugged me there like one time, and I refused to put the girls over because I was like, meh, I hate strip clubs. But the Elks Lodge was always a really fun place to go to and work. Probably second behind the arena for me. The arena is always going to be my home and my favorite building to work in. But the Elks Lodge was nice and intimate, and you can hear everybody and you could see all the fans. You could read every poster, and just the intimacy is what I loved about the building.
This is a good fan question from the Real Frisco. Did you get along with the other ECW divas?
Yeah, for the most part, we all got along. At one point, we all would room together. Beulah and I were very close. People thought, we literally wanted to kill each other, but we worked together for like 3 years, and we were roommates. We slept at each other's houses outside of the business. I still talk to like Jazz to this day. Still friendly with Tammy. I saw Chastity a while back, but she was great. I hung out with her. I hung out with Kimona. Hung out with Dawn Marie in the beginning. So it was nice to have girls around because there was a lot of testosterone in the building.
How did you get along with Sunny, who's very controversial?
Right away. It's funny you asked that because everybody warned me about Tammy. Oh, when Chris came, they're like, oh, if Tammy comes, you're going to have problems and da-da-da. And my thing is, like, I don't care how somebody treated somebody else. Like, I need to see for myself. And if she treats me good, then it's going to be great. And the first night she came in, I remember I was walking one way and she was walking the other way, and she leaned over and she grabbed me and she's like, oh, I finally met you. And I'm like, yeah, we have to talk later. And we clicked like right away. And I loved working with her. I loved traveling with her. We took vacations together. I never once had a problem with Tammy Sytch. So for everyone that told me to beware, I didn't see it. Now, other people might have had, their differences, but she was wonderful to me and still is.
What do you think about her recent struggles? I don't know. I haven't heard if she's been released yet, but unfortunately, she'd been out couple months and something happened where I guess she was driving without a license again.
I think her boyfriend called the police or something. I don't know if it was the domestic dispute, but then other charges. It's sad. It's really sad because she was doing well. She said that she was going to start making appearances again, and she was looking good, and I thought everything was falling into place for her. And then one morning I wake up and I said, somebody sent me a text, so Tammy's back in jail. And I was like, oh my God, is this like the 6th time? Was it you?
I think it was.
Okay, I think it might have been. But it just breaks my heart because here's a girl that, she had the world in the palm of her hand and just threw it all away because of bad choices. And I just think that she needs help. you know.
Hopefully she'll eventually get it, because of all that drinking and driving, of course. She's lucky that no one's died yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a mother, that's one of your biggest fears. Like you put your kids in the car and God forbid something happens. So I do not condone drinking and driving at all. Like it's horrible. And she just needs to get her life together.
There's a fan on here wondering if WCW ever offered you a contract to leave ECW at any point.
WCW did not. WWF did very early in my career. They did in, I believe it was like either 95 or 96. They wanted me to go over and be Sister Love with Bruce Pritchard. And that didn't happen because I said no. They called me right when ECW went bankrupt in 2001. They wanted me to come in as part of X Factor with Just Incredible and Albert, and I think Six Pac got into that thing too. We were supposed to feud with Lita and the Hardy Boys right away. Didn't want to work there, so I declined that as well. And then I did 2005. I did the One Night Stand pay-per-view. I thought it was going to be a one-off. I just wanted the payday. I was like, see you later. 2006, I get this call. Oh, we're bringing the band back together. And I'm just like, what is happening? I'm 34 years old. Like, how is this, But I kind of knew that it wasn't going to be for me. But I said, this is going to be my last run at, something big and a chance to make some money. So let's give it a go and see what happens. And didn't work out, but I'm glad I tried it. So
what do you think the biggest mistake WWE made with that ECW reboot? Because it had potential, but unfortunately it just never worked out.
The biggest mistake was not letting us be us. Trying to put us in a mold that is the WWE version of what they thought ECW should be. And it just backfired. And plus having like you're on the Sci-Fi Network, but you really need to have cartoon characters because you're sci-fi television. Like that didn't make any sense to us whatsoever. I wanted to work. I was told I was going to do exactly what I did for Paul, and none of that was true. And it's frustrating when you go to management and you have I had 13 years of experience at that point. They didn't want me to do anything, just wear a bikini and walk around the ring. And I'm like, I never had to do that when I was in my prime, like in my 20s. Now I'm, mid 30s and you want me to do this BS? Like it just wasn't me. And I don't think I would have signed if I knew that's what I was getting into, but I had no clue. I was told a totally different thing. And
hopefully you at least made some money out of it. How did the WWE roster treat you, ECW people, when you were back there? Did they give you any heat because you guys are kind of coming in potentially taking their jobs, or was everyone pretty accepting?
Yeah, I don't think any of them thought we were stealing their position. They were welcoming. We were put with the SmackDown roster. So we had to go to Raw, we had to go to Monday Night Raw, but Tuesdays was the taping for ECW. So SmackDown was like live to tape. And then after SmackDown was done, we did our deal. And, I got along with all the girls there. It was it was fun afterwards, away from the building, hanging with the girls and, just being away from the business. But being there for me was very uncomfortable. And I just didn't enjoy myself very much. So.
Now, you're very well remembered for being the franchise Shane Douglas's manager. He's been one of the most popular interviews on our channel, and I know the guys do the Triple Threat podcast with him.
Oh, yeah.
Any memories to share with us on that? I know you guys had your ups and downs over the years. We can get into that more when we do the full interview, because I know his side is a little different than yours.
Yeah, it is.
But any overall thoughts to share about your time with Shane?
Yeah, we've fortunately buried the hatchet. We never even went over, didn't even talk about what the problems were. It was just like, it's over with. Let's not rehash old crap and let's just, start new. When I first met him, he had come up to me, and I think he was helping me with a promo, because promos in the beginning made me super nervous and I hated talking. and he was just trying to calm me down and help me out. And I remember that, and we clicked like right away. And I don't know if Paul had the vision in his mind before then, or if he saw us talking and a light bulb went off in his head. But I kept being told by Brian Lee that I was going to leave the Pitbulls and go with Brian. And I had no idea I was going to be paired with Shane. And when Paul called me like a week before or something, he had said, you know what the plans are. And this whole time we're planting seeds, but I'm not picking up on what's putting down here. I'm just like, I keep hearing Brian in my ear say, you're going to end up with me. And here, Paul says, who do you think you're going with? And I said, Brian Lee. I'm going to go buy chaps. And he goes, no, you're not going with Brian Lee. You're going with Shane Douglas. You're going to be the head cheerleader. And I was like, huh? And you have to go buy these panties, and they're going to say franchise on them. And by the way, you're going to be the first girl to ever go through a table. And I was just like, okay. So I had anxiety. I didn't know where to get panties with the franchise on them. I'm running the malls, and I found a place on the boardwalk that airbrushed in like Wildwood. So I went and I bought these panties, and the rest is history. I mean, it was, we clicked from the start. It was just the perfect pairing.
And is there any time that Paul Heyman lied to you? A couple fans have asked that question on here.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, Paul with me has always been more of a friend than a boss. I have seen him kayfabe people. I'm not going to lie about that. But I know that when I used to call, he would pick up the phone for me. I never had any hospital bills that were unpaid. Everything was taken care of. When the checks were bouncing, I did have 10 checks in a row that bounced. And I went to him and I said, look, I'm not getting paid. And, bounced fees were like, I think $35 a check. So I had accumulated like 10 of those. And he said, what's the total? And then he said, I'll be right back. And he came back with a wad of cash. And he said, this is what I owe you. And, he made up for everything. So I will never bury Paul, because if it wasn't for Paul taking a chance on me, I wouldn't be sitting here today, because of Paul, Francine is here. So
what do you think about today? It seems like the girl wrestlers, even though they'll post very sexy pictures on social media, they seem to act like they're better than the cat fighting women. And really that was so entertaining back in the 90s that it wasn't just like girls just doing the matches normally. Like they were more extreme, and I don't know, it just seemed better. But now it seems like the girls of today, even though wrestling's less popular, talk down about some of the divas in the past.
Well, I haven't heard that. I did what I was told to do.
I'm sure Chad has, by the way. I'm not just making that up.
No, I'm not saying you are.
I'm going to keep silent.
I do remember, when I first started training, they were training me as a wrestler, right? And taking, I would take these bumps. And when I had to like audition, I had to do a wrestling match, and I had to work with another female. And I had to do that for Todd Gordon. And then Todd, I guess, called Paul and told him like, what he saw or whatever. When I met Paul, he told me specifically, I'm not going to use you as a wrestler because women's wrestling does not sell. He wants to use me as a manager. He said 2 women that are outside of the ring leave the fans to wonder, are those girls going to get involved? Is something going to happen? Is somebody going to lose a top? Is what can they be doing outside? So he thought that utilizing 2 girls as managers was money compared to women actually locking up without much of a story behind it. And I can honestly say that the way Paul used the women in ECW, bar none. I mean, he let us shine. And of course we had to run with the ball, but each girl that was in there knew what she had to do and did a great job. So Paul knew what he was doing. So for anyone that says otherwise, I mean, I dare you to just go watch and see the angles that we pulled off and the bumps that the girls took. And I think they would have a little more respect for us.
Speaking of that, what was the worst injury you had in ECW?
I broke my pelvis in 2 places. So I was on crutches for 7 weeks. It was completely accidental. It was Bam Bam Bigelow telling me in the back, I don't know what I'm going to do to you out there, but we'll do something. And I said, okay. And so I had to come out, and I think I had to smack him or do something to him. And he just decided to pick me up and press me. And at that point, I think it was a month before I had gotten breast augmentation. So as I'm up there, I'm saying to myself, oh my gosh, if he just throws me and I land on my chest, I'm going to pop I just paid $6,000 for my implants. Like, what am I going to do? So as he just tosses me, and I'm trying to maneuver myself to bump flat on my back, but I landed so quickly, I landed on my hip. And you literally saw it pop out and pop back in. And Paul wouldn't air it because it was so gross. And I actually went and watched them edit a lot, and he showed me like 10 times. He kept like rewinding, and it popped in, popped out, popped in, popped out. And so when I got to the back, he says to me, you got to go to the hospital. And I said, I'm not going to the hospital, get out of here. And he says, you have to. And he says, okay, if you go up, if you can walk the steps, I don't know if you were ever in the arena, but in the back, there used to be the wooden steps that led to the urinals for the guys upstairs on the 2nd floor. And he said, if you can walk up those steps by yourself, you don't have to go. And as soon as I stood up, I almost collapsed because I couldn't put any weight on my left side. So it was broke my pelvis.
Ooh, I'm glad you were able to recover from that one. And last question before we wrap up here from Krilling 876. Were you influenced by Sherry Martel?
Sherry Martel was my absolute favorite woman in the business. When I got into ECW, I wanted to bump like Sherry, but look like Nancy Sullivan, So I put those two together and wanted to twist it and make it my own. And I remember, like, I got to hang out with Nancy a bunch of times, but Sherry, I got to meet her one night, and it was right before she left to go to WCW, and I did not know she was leaving. And she was telling me, I can't wait to work with you. And she grabbed my hair and we're going to whip you around. We're going to get that hair. We're going to whip. And I was like, that's great. And I was telling her, like, I'm a big fan and I love your work. And then she goes and tells me about when she gets like so drunk and flies to Japan and gets off the plane and just works the whole match drunk. And now I'm scared of her. Right. And I'm like, oh my God, am I going to work with her and she's going to be drunk? Like, this is crazy. But she never came back after that night. She was with Harlem Heat. So I never got to work with her. And it was very sad because I wanted to.
That's unfortunate. Well, I very much appreciate that you took the time to do this quick tease today. And we just scratched the surface. We're going to have to do a several-hour interview, hopefully in the near future.
Yes.
I know you have social media.
I do.
And by the way, you hold the record for most compliments in the shortest amount of time. I know Chad has seen some of these. But the fans
guys, you get too kind to me. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And yes, I am wearing a Mets cap.
Be quiet. Can I just say thank you? Because when I'm in a story mode, like I'm just talking, and I missed half of those things. But I appreciate you guys coming to watch this. And thank you for all the nice things that you've said. Social media across the board is at ECW Diva Francine. I also do cameos, and I also have a OnlyFans page. No nudity, by the way, just cute, sexy pictures, but don't get it twisted there. And all the information that you need is on my Twitter. So it's at ECW Diva Francine. And Patreon.
All about the Patreon.
Yes, patreon.com/Francine podcast is where you can listen to Eyes Up Here and get all of our extra content.
And I just have to slip one quick final question. Is craziest fan that's harassed you over the years? Because you mentioned no nudes on Cameo or Patreon, but we know some people have some really weird requests on there.
OnlyFans has been interesting. I've only been on it for the last month. And from day one, I've told people no nudes, no craziness. Like, if you have an idea, you can ask me, but be prepared to be turned down because I'm not about that. And I've had men argue with me and tell me you need to get naked and you need to do this because you will not make any money. One guy has threatened to go all over social media and destroy me because this is a huge disappointment and he's not happy with my content because it's just bikini and lingerie. And I'm just like, dude, I offered a half price. You paid $5. Like, that's a cup of coffee. If that's too much for you, then I'm sorry, but you are welcome to leave. So, most people have been respectful, but there are that handful of guys who just want more and they will just keep asking, but they're never going to get it. So sorry.
But let me just say this, though. We did get a full episode on Patreon about those fans that have requested some of these weird things. And Francine went through the whole thing and covered each individual. And it's remarkable what she gets
put
said.
Their names up on the screen.
No, I won't out anyone. But
we won't do that. But
I've read my DMs. I just found out that on Instagram, my DMs are open. And I never knew that. And one day I just happened to click and the stuff that they were writing to me, I was like, I was appalled. But then I said, oh, this is gold. I'm going to read them on Patreon. So we do a monthly thing where I read DMs and I don't know. I mean, I don't mind somebody asking, but if I say no, accept it and move on. Don't argue with me and call me names. People are actually resorting to calling me names. And I'm just I didn't lie or deceive anybody from the get-go. I said, I'm not going to do nudity. So I don't know why everybody's in an uproar about this, but whatever.
I got the same problem, so it's all.
Yeah,
it's all
that goes through too.
It's all good. But before, hey, do you mind if I plug the old chat?
Plug it all, wrap it up, plug it all, and I'll leave it to you guys to close it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's at Chad EMB on Twitter. There's many things out there in the world, but please come over to Francine's Patreon page, patreon.com/Francine podcast. It's got so much content. If you like old ECW stories, if you like to have fun, you like to play some games, this is the channel for you. We know there's a lot of options out there, but this one specifically, it's different, and we offer something that might tickle your fancy. And we appreciate everybody who's there, but we want to grow it, and we want more people to join and become part of the Patreon family.
Family, yes,
without a doubt. It's all about the family, and and everybody who's ever liked Francine and thought about ECW, we cover everything she did. She was there forever. You're a lifer, okay? We talk about your life.
I really was, yeah. And we do watch-alongs, which a lot of the fans love that. And we do watch-alongs, and I tell behind-the-scenes stories about before, the match or anything funny that happened in the match, little tidbits that you would not get from, a worker. You get the inside scoop, so it's a lot of fun.